Slowly bring the palms of your hands together at chest level and rub them gently against each other. Press the palms of your hands into your closed eyes. Slowly open your eyes and lower your hands. Welcome to Satsang. We'll start as always with a question that's come in advance, and then open it up to any of the questions that are here. How would you define foolishness? It's always such an interesting range of questions that we get. Of the most philosophically esoteric to the most practical of daily life to questions about the definition of foolishness, which actually is wonderful. On a personal level, when you think about foolishness, when we think about being silly, doing something that's not smart, this is what foolishness is. The deepest and the truest aspect of foolishness is for us to forget what we're here for. Look, it's a perfect example. Notice how the door opens for somebody to come in. Okay, the universe sent me a perfect example at this moment. Okay, it was fantastic. I love the universe. Okay, so at that moment, here we are, sitting in satsang. The door opens, somebody's going to come in and sit down. And we know that. And we know that you may not know who the person was, but we know it's going to be somebody walking in for satsang. But every one of our eyes and attention go. Look at how, and this is what happens to our meditation, okay? And this is what happens to our life. And it was a beautiful example. We got it today a lot during the meditation. And then we just got it, and it's a perfect example. We're given one life in this body. Now, yes, of course, we're going to get a new body if we don't figure it out this time around. We have no idea how many years of life we have. But what we do know is it's going to end. And it's going to end sooner than we'd like it to end. And look at how easily we are distracted. You're here, specifically here in this room, because of an inner something that has brought you to Rishikesh. It's brought you to the banks of Ganga in Rishikesh. It's brought you in Rishikesh instead of being shopping or sitting in a cyber cafe checking your emails or on your Facebook. It's brought you to satsang. All of the intention is exactly right. And look at how easily distracted we still get. And this isn't for us to feel bad about ourselves. It's just for us to understand the nature of the mind. And if I simply was describing it, that would be one thing. But since the universe sent us this perfect example, it's great to grab it. And this is what happens in life. We have these intentions. Okay, I'm going to live a spiritually connected life. I'm going to live a pure life. I'm going to live a dharmic life. I'm not going to forget what I'm here for. I'm not going to worry about my shelf. I'm going to worry about myself, as Pujya Swamiji reminded us in the Arti. And then, the tiniest little distraction, not even something that has anything to do with us, just the universe moving by, random people on the sidewalk, random beep or bleep on our mobile device, some random person says something, does something, and suddenly, look at how derailed I get. This is the perfect answer to our question of that definition of foolishness. Because when you know that you have a limited amount of time, when you know you have one opportunity in this body to get it, you want to stay focused. It's like, go back to the days of when you were in school. You've got a timed exam. You've got 30 minutes to get this exam done. Those of you who are in school now, right? 30 minutes, 1 hour, however long it is to finish that exam. You are focused. It doesn't matter who's coming in or out of the room. You're not looking around at what this one's... You are focused because you know the minute that that clock beeps at 30 minutes, at 1 hour, however long is allocated for this exam, that paper is going to be pulled off my desk, and that's it. And so you stay completely focused. Nobody even gets up to go to the bathroom until there's a break, because even if they let you, the last thing you want to do is lose 5 minutes out of your 30 minutes or 60 minutes. Because you know it's not going to be enough time anyway. And so in life, when we let ourselves get so distracted by what this one is saying, what this one is doing, how much this one is making, what this one is wearing, how this one is acting, our whole lives go in that. And so on a personal level, when you say, how do you define foolishness? Well, clearly they're not just asking for a Webster's dictionary definition, because these days we have Google. You don't need to ask anybody, you have it. To me, really, that's the greatest foolishness, is to forget what we are here for. And to be so easily grabbed. Because if we lived in a cave where there weren't a society going by, where we didn't have devices, where we didn't have people or things, we still would be distracted by the mind. The state of distraction is not a state of today. We may think, oh my God, the problem is there's too much to do. The problem is my device, but it's actually not. Because all of the teachings that we've been given in the scriptures were given to us long before we even had TVs or telephones, the kind that actually came on a hook. These are not teachings of the era of smartphones. They're teachings of thousands of years ago. The mind is distractible. But we just today have a lot more opportunities to allow ourselves to get distracted. And so in this life, remember, every minute and every moment, am I on track or am I distracted? Because if I hadn't said, when we all turned to see who came in, if I hadn't grabbed that moment to make it an example, but I had kept talking, and then I had stopped and I had said, okay, there's going to be a quiz. What did I just say? But 90% of you would have missed it. Only 20 seconds, 25 seconds, just however long it takes to look at the door, notice who's come in, realize, okay, none of my business, come back to where you are. But in that moment, you would have missed it. And in life, how many of the moments of life, moments to experience love, moments to experience connection, how many moments with our family do we miss? Because we're distracted by they're dressed the way we wish they weren't dressed. They're eating what we wish they wouldn't be eating. They're chewing with their mouth open. Their table manners aren't right. They didn't do this. They were 10 minutes late. Whatever it may be. Or we're distracted by something else that happened to us during the day. Here we are in this incredibly beautiful opportunity to experience love and connection, but my mind is on that really annoying coworker. Spilled her Pepsi on my report today, on purpose, I know it, just so I couldn't turn it into the boss on time. And so I missed that moment. We sit to meditate, and our minds are jumping. Jumping with the past, jumping with the future, jumping with what we think isn't right about the present moment, jumping with what ifs. Is this the right decision for my life? Am I ruining my life? Is it good that I got married? Maybe I never should have gotten married. Maybe I should have married somebody else. Should I have kids? Should I not have had kids? Should I be in this city? Should I be in a different city? Whatever it is, minds are constantly on. It's the nature of the mind. And so what we end up losing is the ability to actually be present with our life. So here we are, we've made a choice to be in this marriage, in this job, in this family, in this city, in this neighborhood. And yet, our minds won't even let us actually be there and benefit from the joy that could be gotten from whatever a life it is that we've chosen and created for ourselves. Because the mind is always somewhere else, in the what ifs, should haves, could haves, maybe shouldn't have. We're living a parallel universe simultaneously. And every door that opens, here it was a physical door, but in life it's metaphoric doors, everything. Oh, maybe I should have walked through that, maybe this, maybe that. What about this? So we miss our opportunity to meditate. So many people even give up on meditation because they say, I just can't do it, my mind wanders too much, it's useless. Which means I can't even experience the truth of who I am. I've lived in this body, I've lived in this life for 20, 30, 50, 60, 70 years. And I can't, for even 5, 10, 30 minutes, experience the gift of who I am. Experience the gift of the truth. So that's the foolishness. Because it's nothing we're a victim of. There is no one who has done this to us. It's patterns, it's habits. But it's patterns and habits that we are the only ones who can change. If when you were young, you got mixed up in the wrong crowd and they got you addicted to smoking cigarettes, but now 20, 30, 40 years later, you're still smoking cigarettes, well, you really can't go back and blame those kids when you were 11. Yeah, that may be how it started. That may be how the habit or pattern started. Okay. Kids do silly things. But you've had now 20, 30, 40 years, for God's sakes, with a good brain to stop. Just because you got mixed up with the wrong crowd at that age doesn't mean your whole life should be wasted. In the same way, just because we get into patterns of thought based on whether it's our family of origin, whether it's our education system, whether it's our friends, whether it's the society, whether it's some very complex, kitschery mix of all of that, whatever it may be, this is the patterns that are in our mind. Okay. So we can say, well, I've got that because my mom this, my dad that, my teacher this, my uncle that, my siblings this, when I was young that. Okay. That's like saying I'm still smoking at 60 and dying of lung cancer because at 11, those stupid kids got me hooked. Well, what about the last 50 years? Who's been in charge then? And so the foolishness is giving up our ability to create the life that we are supposed to be living in our minds, in our hearts, in our beings, because of patterns, distractions. But it's not the distraction's fault, because not 100% of you turned. We won't go into all of that, but it's something actually very interesting to look at. The different tendencies we have. What pulls some of us? What pulls others of us? We all have something. But what we all have is the ability to change those habits. And it's not easy. Quitting smoking isn't easy. Quitting any habit we have isn't easy. But if you love someone who's addicted to cigarettes and they say, I can't quit, you'd say, you better quit because otherwise you're going to kill yourself. Doesn't your life matter to you? Don't your kids matter to you? Doesn't your husband or your wife matter to you, right? This is all the sorts of, it's kind of manipulation, but it works and it's for a good cause. I'm all in favor of, that type of manipulation if you can convince somebody to finally drop a habit that's killing them. But you have to show them, why are you killing yourself? You've got these beautiful kids who need you. And then a lot of times it works and they say, oh yeah, okay. Yes, it's hard, but it's worth it. And in the same way, we say to ourselves, wait, what about this whole life we have? Are we really prepared to allow every minute to be grabbed from us? Because of patterns and habits of distraction? By patterns and habits of not being present, of being in the past, the future? 10 other realities simultaneously. Oh, that would have been good. That way, it's like your own sort of choose your own adventure book of life, but one that you read backwards, forwards, skipping around till you drive yourself completely crazy. Even the books don't let you work like that. You have to choose one, and then you go. But in our life, there's no end to the comparisons, the competitions, the judgments of ourselves, the negativity. That's the foolishness. Because we have the choice. So much of that which happens in life, we don't have a choice over. You can't choose if there's going to be traffic on the freeway and you miss a flight. You can't choose if, God forbid, there's a fire and your house burns down. God forbid something happens to a loved one. God forbid, there's so many God forbids in the world over which we don't have control. At least that over which we do have control. Let's not be foolish. And really take matters into our own hands. And if you notice yourself getting just about to get distracted, bring yourself back. This is what we do in meditation. Those of you who have been coming for several days know, usually in meditation I give more guidance, more instruction, sort of, I wouldn't say deeper, but more aspects of parts of the meditation into which to go, to follow. But tonight, because there were so many outer distractions, I knew that simply being able to keep the awareness on the breath in and of itself was going to be challenging enough. And to keep that as the only instruction, because that in and of itself was going to be a challenge. But it was a great challenge because if you can master that, if in the midst of outer noise, and it's a perfect example because in a situation like that, the outer noises have nothing to do with us. Random people, they're coming in the doors, they're moving, they're sitting down, they're playing with their keys, they're talking to other people. Nothing to do with us. Our life is not in danger. No one's cutting off our hair or stealing our clothes or taking... No, nothing is happening to us. But nonetheless, we're so easily distracted. Now you imagine in life when things actually are happening to you. When people literally are poking at you, pulling you, then you try to meditate. So first we have to at least be able to meditate when the distractions aren't directed at us, when the distractions aren't about us, when they're just random goings-on in the outer world. Only then can we even begin to hope to be able to maintain a grounded, anchored, meditative life when people of the world literally are poking at you and stabbing at you and whispering bad things to you and criticizing you. Because that's the goal. The goal isn't only to be able to meditate when everything is silent and peaceful and everyone is nice and loving to me. The goal is to be able to meditate, no matter what. And so we begin with that which is easier. And we slowly take it to deeper levels. But we have to at least be able to keep our awareness. You know, when you talk about the 8 limbs of yoga, we won't go into all of them now, but it's interesting to note the last 3. So samadhi is the 8th limb, that ecstatic, divine union with God. Just before that comes meditation, dhyan. And just before that comes this single-pointed focus, dharana. Now, they move sequentially. And so the very first thing I have to do, and we call it meditation, but it actually, if we were going to be very, very specific, it's not actually yet dhyan, it's actually dharana. If we're being aware of our breath, and we're bringing our awareness to the breath, or to a mantra, we're still on limb number 6. We're not yet actually up at meditation. We're still on bringing that awareness into a single point, my breath or a mantra. And only once I'm able to maintain that attention, then what happens is I'm actually able to enter a state of meditation. And in that state, eventually what happens is the meditator and the object of meditation, whatever I am meditating upon, and the meditation become one. So you go from totally distracted to my breath, inhalations, exhalations are my mantra, to this beautiful state of meditation, of actually just merged into it. So I'm not any longer having to focus this hard attention on it. Now I've just merged into it. And then suddenly, that merging becomes so complete that there's no me who is meditating, object of meditation, an act of meditation. There just is. And when there just is, that's when we finally experience that eighth limb of samadhi. But we have to move through them, and that first piece is that single pointed focus. And we learn it in meditation, but then it's supposed to transcend into our lives. And that's one of the really important pieces of why we do meditation. Because if I can't focus on just my breath, when my eyes are closed, sitting in a dark room, I'm not going to be able to focus on something in the world. If with no distractions around, I can't hold my attention on my breath or on a mantra, it's going to be very difficult for me to move through the world holding my attention on the truth, holding my attention on consciousness. So we first learn that on the cushion, on the mat, but then we take it into the rest of our lives. If there are any other questions, yes, and then you, yes, okay.
I think the foolish are the successful people. I
Oh.
quote you example. Here is a man who deviated from the family business. Hears all type of abuses from the family. Why you are going on acting like.
Okay. I'm so sorry. I'm going to interrupt you here for just a moment. I apologize for that. I usually don't. Just because since time is short and we have 3 questions, and I actually understood yours, so we don't need the whole story. But so the question is the foolishness of, he said, I think that those who are fools are those who are successes. And he was giving an example, which I apologize for stopping him halfway through, of someone who's left the family, left the importance of the connection with the family for money and success. Now, that example may absolutely be true, but when you think about a definition, we need to define things in a more general sense. Otherwise, with 7+ billion people in the world, we'd end up with 7+ billion different examples of what foolishness looks like. Because foolishness in me is going to look very different from foolishness in you, simply because we all have different stories. But if we're going to come up with one general definition, it has to be something that applies. And so I wouldn't say that only those who are successful are foolish, because I think that there's plenty of people who aren't necessarily successful by external standards, but who also, by the definition that we've just spoken about, one could certainly say are having moments, are shrouded in the clutches of foolishness, because it doesn't come actually from what you have outside. It actually comes from where the mind is. It's not the money. It's not the job. It's not the house. It's not the car that distracts us from our truth. It's our own mind. I could be super poor living in a shack, and every time I walk by a billboard that shows me a picture of some beautiful, wealthy woman, and maybe it's a billboard selling watches, for example, and so it's a beautiful, well-dressed woman, and she's got this beautiful diamond watch on it, and every time I walk by, I scowl. I think, why her? Why not me? I should have that watch. I should be beautiful like that. I should have that sari. This isn't fair. So I'm poor, but I've been absolutely hijacked in my life by that foolishness, which is to forget what I am here for. I've been hijacked by the illusion that that watch or this money is what I need to be happy, to be peaceful, to be successful. So yes, the person in your example, absolutely. They also have been distracted away from what really matters into that which doesn't matter as deeply. They've been distracted from family connections into temporary, fleeting material wealth. But that's not the only way that those distractions afflict us. And so we have to realize that for each of us, whether we are distracted by pulls toward money, pulls toward financial success, or whether we're distracted simply by a story that we tell ourselves about something that has happened in our lives that we think has determined who we are, something that has hurt us or shaped us in a way, that it's given us an identity that says, oh, I'm never going to be successful, or I'm never going to have happiness, or I'm never going to have this that I want because X, Y, and Z. I'm not smart enough, or I'm not good enough, or I'm not, I'm too lazy, or I'm too ugly, or I'm too fat, or I'm too stupid, or I'm too old already, or because I married the wrong person, or because I didn't get married on time, or because I had too many kids, or because I didn't have enough kids, or because I worked too hard, or because I didn't work hard enough. Those stories, those are actually what pull us out of the truth. And our willingness to go along, the stories don't make us fools. The stories just make us human. But our willingness to go along with the story, our willingness to give up our autonomy into the story, our willingness to sacrifice the incredible opportunity that we have to co-create bliss and joy and truth and service in every moment, and to sacrifice that opportunity on the altar of a drama that someone else has created in our lives. That's foolishness. And sometimes it absolutely takes the form of what you've said, and it also can take 7 billion other forms. Because we have all different workings of the mind. But that power of distraction, of pulling us out of the present into the past and the future, that's universal. Yes?
How do you tell the difference between an inner voice of intuition versus an inner voice of ego?
So, yes. We speak about inner voices all the time. Listen to your inner voice, connect with your inner voice. But she asked very aptly, how do you tell the difference between the inner voice of intuition and the inner voice of ego? And there's no formula, sadly, because the ego is so clever. Because the ego is so versatile. The ego is like a chameleon. If I tell you that your inner voice is going to be really loud, well, you can be sure that your ego is going to get itself one of those loudspeakers. Suddenly it's going to be really loud. And if I tell you that your inner voice is like a quiet whisper, well, as you lie down to sleep, your ego is going to cuddle up next to you and whisper in your ear. So we have to drop a little bit deeper. The real only way to know is practice and familiarity. The example that I give about this is, if you stand outside of a nursery where there are 50 or 100 kids inside, and the parents are talking outside. Suddenly from inside, one baby starts to cry. Now, to an outsider, they all sound exactly the same. There is no way to know who is crying when it's just cries. Before they learn to talk, before they say anything, just crying, no way to know. Unless you're the mother or father. If that mother or father is standing outside and their kid starts to cry, immediately out of 50 other voices, they know that's my kid. And they run in. How do they know? Because they're so connected to that voice that they know. It's not that you could say, oh, well, because my kid, cries in a C minor. It has nothing to do with, scale or tone or pitch or anything like that. It's a connection to that voice that from inside, it's the heart, much more than the ears, that knows. My kid crying. Because they're connected. And this is why the practice of meditation is so important. Because when you meditate, you become familiar with that inner voice. You become familiar with that feeling of being grounded and anchored in truth. So that later on, when you need it, when you're in sort of a crisis situation, it's a familiar voice. Because unfortunately, there's not only two voices. It's not just the intuition and the ego. The ego has got so many forms. You've got fears and desires, confusions, expectations, the past, the future, your parents' voices, your culture's voices, so many voices. So you have to be so connected to that inner voice through your meditation, that even in the midst of 50 screaming voices, you know, aha, that's me. Another way to know, and this isn't 100% true because sometimes the intuition on a physical level comes to our rescue. I have a friend whose intuition made him literally stop his car for no reason whatsoever 10 seconds before he would have been in a fatal car accident. So sometimes the intuition works like that. Like out of the blue, you have no idea why. There's a voice that says, put on your brakes. The brain says, but why? The road is totally clear. But you listen, you do it, and 10 seconds later, a truck comes barreling through its red light, and you think, oh my God, if I hadn't listened, I would have been in the intersection. But that's a more unusual way that the intuition comes in terms of that actual kind of screaming, I'm trying to save your life voice. Typically what I have found is that the voice of ego, fear, desire is much more of a frantic voice inside, whereas the voice of truth tends to be much more anchored and stable. It's not frantic in that way. It's not frenetic. It's not the now, gotta have it right now, time's running out voice. It's not the voice that says, but the tickets are going to go in an hour, you've got to get them, or the sale's going to be over in 24 hours, you have to buy it now. The inner voice tends to be much more grounded because it has less attachment. It understands the point is not whether you actually get the shoes before the sale ends or don't get the shoes before the sale. That's not so much what it's worried about. It understands the higher purpose and higher meaning. So it tends not to be a frantic, frenetic, hyper voice. Again, occasionally, it's the voice yelling to slam on your brakes in the middle of what looks like an empty highway. But that's the rare piece. Usually if you've got two voices, one that's calm and stable, and one that's kind of all over the place, frantic, the calm and stable one is the intuition. Another thing about it is, it's not up and down. So if something is true today, it's going to be true tomorrow. The intuition doesn't usually go up and down the way that our moods go up and down. And so the intuition usually can handle a 24-hour wait period. Desires usually can't. Fears can't. Anger can't. Ego can't. Intuition usually can. So if you say to yourself, I know, I'm just going to take about 24 hours and meditate on this, the ego will say, no, 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 no. The inner intuition will say, yeah, sure. Good for us. No problem. Take all the time you need. Because it knows. Yes. Can we start with yours tomorrow? Does that work? Since I don't even have to ask you if you're going to be here tomorrow. I know you will be. Wonderful. So we will start tomorrow with Karuna's question and have a beautiful rest of your evening. And we'll see you all tomorrow on the beautiful day of Dashera. It's a very special holiday tomorrow, so we'll talk about that tomorrow as well.